You surprised your team played like you did with so much on the line?
You know, I didn't think we played poorly. We just didn't make enough plays. I thought they played well. I thought the game was kind of unfolding in the way that you would anticipate, but we never made that signature play that kind of got us over the hump. That generally is the deciding factor in games like this, and we generally make them. We didn't make them today.
Mike Tomlin just experienced instant regret after Shadur Sanders handed him one of the most devastating losses of his Hall of Fame coaching career. The Steelers came into Cleveland needing a win to clinch a playoff spot, and Shedeur Sanders, the fifth-round quarterback that Tomlin passed on in the draft, just eliminated them from postseason contention on their own turf. But here's what makes this even more brutal. Tomlin admitted in the post-game press conference that his team didn't make enough plays and that they never made that signature play that kind of got us over the hump. The exact same plays that Shadur Sanders was making all game long. Kevin Stefanski praised Shadur for getting his first home win and beating a division rival, but what he didn't say is even more powerful. This was Shadur proving to Mike Tomlin that passing on him was the biggest mistake Pittsburgh has made in years. The rookie that wasn't supposed to be ready just ruined the Steelers' season, and you could see the regret written all over Tomlin's face when he talked about how we generally make those plays, but we didn't make them today.
How about Shadur? How do you wrap up Shadur's performance today?
Yeah, obviously he wins. Got to win, so that's great for the young man. Gets to beat Pittsburgh, gets to beat a division rival. So they're not going to be easy, not in this division. So proud of him for that. There's always things he can clean up. I thought we got a little unlucky on that first interception. We can certainly learn from the second one, and he will. But yeah, he continued to battle.
Look, let me paint you a picture of what just happened in Cleveland. The Pittsburgh Steelers rolled into town with everything on the line. Win this game, clinch a playoff spot, and solidify their position in the AFC North. They had Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, a future Hall of Famer with more playoff experience than most coaches have had hot meals. They had one of the best defenses in the league. They had Mike Tomlin, a coach who's been to 2 Super Bowls and has never had a losing season in his entire career. And they lost to a 4-11 Cleveland Browns team led by a rookie 5th-round quarterback who didn't get his first start until week 13. That's not just a loss, that's humiliation. That's career-defining failure. That's the kind of result that keeps coaches up at night for years wondering what if. And Mike Tomlin knows it. You could hear it in every word of his post-game press conference. When a reporter asked him if he was surprised his team played the way they did with so much on the line, listen to what Tomlin said. "I didn't think we played poorly. We just didn't make enough plays. I thought they played well. I thought the game was kind of unfolding in the way that you would anticipate, but we never made that signature play that kind of got us over the hump. That generally is the deciding factor in games like this, and we generally make them. We didn't make them today." Read that again. We generally make them. We didn't make them today. That's a coach who knows his team choked. That's a coach who knows they had every opportunity to win and couldn't execute when it mattered most. That's a coach who's trying to rationalize how a rookie quarterback he could have drafted just ended his season. And here's the kicker. While Mike Tomlin's offense was failing to make signature plays, Shadur Sanders was out there making them all game long. That 60-yard touchdown to Harold Fannin Jr., signature play. The way he stood tall in the pocket with TJ Watt and Tamron Hayward breathing down his neck, signature play. The composure he showed after throwing 2 interceptions, one that wasn't even his fault, to come back and lead his team to victory, that's the definition of a signature play. Mike Tomlin praised Shadur before this game. He talked about his toughness, his confidence, his fearlessness, and then Shadur went out and proved every single word of it by eliminating the Steelers from playoff contention. That's the kind of karma that sports movies are made of. Now, let's talk about Kevin Stefanski's post-game press conference, because this is where things get really interesting. When a reporter asked Stefanski to wrap up Shadur's performance, here's exactly what he said. "Obviously he wins, gotta win, so that's great for the young man. gets to beat Pittsburgh, gets to beat a divisional rival. They're not going to be easy, not in this division, so proud of him for that. There's always things he can clean up. I thought we got a little unlucky on that first interception. We can certainly learn from the second one, and he will. But yeah, he continued to battle.
How did that affect the way Aaron Rodgers played today?
Yeah, I think Miles affects every single game, Jeff. Obviously, he shows up in the stat sheet in a bunch of different areas, but even the things you don't see, how they have to play the game. I mean, they have to play an empty the entire game and chip both sides. Those are two eligibles, that aren't getting out in the route immediately. So it affects how teams play us.
Kevin, you talked about the effort and the way these guys are playing.
Now, on the surface, that sounds like typical coach speak. Praise the win, acknowledge areas for improvement, move on. But read between the lines. Stefanski said he was proud of Shedeur for beating Pittsburgh. He said it was great for the young man to beat a division rival. He acknowledged that the first interception was unlucky and not Shedeur's fault. This is the same coach who gave Shedeur the wrong plays in his wristband, the same coach who refused to give him first-team reps for months, the same coach who buried him on the depth chart behind Dylan Gabriel and Deshaun Watson. And now, after Shedeur just eliminated a playoff team and secured his first home win, Stefanski is out here talking about how proud he is. The hypocrisy is almost comical. But you know what? I'll give Stefanski credit for one thing. At least he acknowledged that the first interception wasn't Shedeur's fault. Because it wasn't. Shedeur threw a perfect ball that got tipped at the line of scrimmage and ended up in a defender's hands. That's football. That's bad luck. And Stefanski actually defended his quarterback instead of throwing him under the bus. That's progress. That's what a real coach is supposed to do. But let's get back to Mike Tomlin, because this is where the regret really starts to sink in. When a reporter asked Tomlin what kept his team from making plays, especially offensively, Tomlin gave the most defeated answer I've ever heard from him. They had a lot to do with it. They made some plays, and I'm never one not to compliment worthy opponents, man, and certainly they made plays today. Worthy opponents. Mike Tomlin just called a 4-11 Browns team with a rookie quarterback worthy opponents. Think about how much it must have hurt him to say those words. The Steelers were supposed to come into Cleveland, handle their business, and clinch a playoff spot. Instead, they got dominated by a team that's been sabotaging their own quarterback all season long. And the crazy part? Mike Tomlin saw this coming. He praised Shedeur before the game. He talked about his toughness and confidence. He knew what kind of competitor Shedeur was, and he still couldn't stop him. That's what makes this loss so devastating for Pittsburgh. It's not like they got caught off guard. It's not like they didn't prepare. They knew exactly what Shedeur Sanders was capable of, and they still couldn't make enough plays to beat him. Now let's talk about Myles Garrett for a second, because his performance in this game was absolutely critical. Kevin Stefanski was asked about Myles' presence and how it affected the way the Steelers had to game plan, and his answer was beautiful. Myles affects every single game. Obviously, he shows up in the stat sheet in a bunch of different areas, but even the things you don't see, how they have to play the game. I mean, they have to play an empty the entire game and chip both sides. Those are two eligibles that aren't getting out in the route immediately, so it affects how teams play us. You hear that? The Steelers had to dedicate 2 players to blocking Myles Garrett on every single snap. That's 2 fewer pass catchers. That's 2 fewer weapons for Aaron Rodgers to work with. That's the Browns' defense dictating how the Steelers had to play offense.
Obviously, that he's going to have to deal with in terms of moving on beyond being coached by his father. But, professional football is just as professional football. I don't imagine it'll be a challenge for him. There are a lot more significant, tangible challenges.
And you know who benefited from that? Shedeur Sanders. Because while the Steelers' offense was struggling to create mismatches and get receivers open against a Browns defense that was playing lights out, Shedeur was out there carving up the Pittsburgh secondary. Mike Tomlin can make all the excuses he wants about not having DK Metcalf or losing Darnell Washington to a broken arm, but at the end of the day, the Steelers lost this game because they couldn't execute when it mattered most, and Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback Mike Tomlin could have drafted but didn't, was the reason why. Let me tell you something about this game that's not getting enough attention: the weather. Kevin Stefanski was asked about the wind being a factor, and he said it was huge. The wind was so bad that Stefanski didn't even attempt a long field goal because he didn't think his kicker could make it. That's how brutal the conditions were. And Shadur Sanders still went out there and threw a 60-yard touchdown in those conditions. He still made critical throws to keep drives alive. He still showed the poise and accuracy that made him one of the most productive quarterbacks in college football history. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers, the Hall of Famer with all the experience and all the weapons, couldn't get it done, and Mike Tomlin knows it. You could hear the frustration in his voice when he talked about not making signature plays. You could see the defeat in his body language during the press conference. This wasn't just a loss for Pittsburgh. This was a statement from Shedeur Sanders to every team that passed on him in the draft. You made a mistake. Now, I want to circle back to something Kevin Stefanski said that really stood out to me. When asked about why the team is still fighting so hard despite being eliminated from playoff contention, Stefanski said, "It's just our DNA. They love playing together. They love playing next to their brothers." That's beautiful. That's real. That's the kind of culture that Shedeur Sanders has helped build in Cleveland, despite all the sabotage, despite all the adversity, despite all the dysfunction at the top. The veterans on this team could have quit weeks ago. They could have mailed it in and started thinking about vacation, but they didn't. They kept fighting, they kept believing, and they rewarded their fans with a historic home win against a division rival. And you know who's at the center of that culture change? Shedeur Sanders, the rookie quarterback who didn't get first-team reps until Week 13, the fifth-round pick who wasn't supposed to be ready, the young man who's been carrying the weight of an entire organization on his shoulders and refusing to break. Mike Tomlin made a comment during the press conference that really stuck with me. When asked if there was too much focus on keeping Myles Garrett from breaking the sack record, Tomlin said, "We didn't do anything against Myles that we don't normally do against Myles. The sack record's irrelevant. We gotta minimize him if we want to engineer victory." But here's the thing, they didn't minimize him. Myles Garrett might not have gotten the sack record, but his presence completely changed how Pittsburgh had to play offense. And in trying to account for Myles Garrett, the Steelers left themselves vulnerable to everything else the Browns were doing defensively. That's championship-level game planning from Jim Schwartz and the Browns' defensive staff. That's taking your best player and making him the focal point of your entire defensive scheme, knowing that it's going to create opportunities for everyone else. And on offense, Kevin Stefanski, despite all his flaws, despite all the sabotage earlier in the season, called a game that put Shedeur in position to succeed. He attacked Pittsburgh's defense early with play action and vertical shots. He got the ball out of Shedeur's hands quickly to neutralize the pass rush. He trusted his rookie quarterback to make plays in critical moments. And Shedeur delivered. There's a moment in Kevin Stefanski's press conference that really encapsulates what this win meant. When asked how special it was to win the home finale after everything this season, Stefanski said, "We love playing in front of our fans. We love that they stick with us. We love the energy that they bring to this building, and we wanted to reward them with a win versus a division opponent." That's not just coach speak, that's genuine emotion. That's a coach who knows his job is on the line, who knows his team has underperformed all season, who knows the fans deserved better, and they finally delivered. And the person who made it possible? Shedeur Sanders. Mike Tomlin can talk all he wants about worthy opponents and not making signature plays, but the reality is simple. He had the chance to draft Shedeur Sanders. He passed, and now he's watching that same quarterback end his season. That's regret. That's what keeps coaches up at night. That's the kind of decision you replay in your mind over and over, wondering what could have been. Mike Tomlin just learned the hard way what happens when you pass on generational talent. Shadur Sanders eliminated the Pittsburgh Steelers from playoff contention, secured his first home win, and proved to the entire NFL that the doubters made a catastrophic mistake. While Tomlin admitted his team never made that signature play, Shadur was making them all game long. Kevin Stefanski praised his rookie quarterback for battling and getting the win, but the real story is the regret you could hear in Mike Tomlin's voice when he realized the quarterback he passed on just ruined his season. This wasn't just a win for Cleveland. This was Shadur Sanders announcing to the league that he's here to stay. If you want more truth about Shadur Sanders, Mike Tomlin's regret, and the chaos in Cleveland, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're bringing you the real story every single day. Let's ride with 12. Let's go.